The personal views expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a very special guest all the way from San Francisco, Lawrence Gentilello, who is the CEO and founder of Optery, which specializes in personal data removal for customers and businesses. Welcome.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, Debbie. It's been a little while to make this happen, but it's great to kick off the year here and the spring with speaking with you.
Yeah, this is amazing. So I'm glad we're definitely getting to talk. I think we have some synergies in the fact that we are very much in tune with kind of the data business and the harms and risks that can come to consumers and businesses and the things that they need to do. But why don't you tell me about your journey into Optery and why you thought it was important to create this business?
Yeah, definitely. So my journey into Optery came from really two angles. And the first angle is that I entered the data space in 2011 when I joined a company called BlueKai. And BlueKai was one of the early leaders of data companies that would partner with companies like Expedia, Kayak, Cars.com, Hotels.com, eBay.com, and would capture intent data, purchase intent data on cookies, and then would sell that cookie data into the ad tech ecosystem. So the biggest customer was Google. Another big customer might be Yahoo or AOL. And so it was a data broker, and it was a data broker that focused on more personalized advertising. And so when I entered the space, it was really kind of the heyday of like kind of Google ads and Facebook ads. That was all really starting to take shape. And it was from a pretty innocent perspective of, we have more targeted ads. There's a lot of it around retargeting. You look at a pair of shoes on Nordstrom, and then you go look at Football Blog and you see the pair of shoes. And that was really what BlueKai did, and it brought me into the space. And I spent a few years there, and then that company was acquired by Oracle, and BlueKai became the foundation of the Oracle Data Cloud. That set off a chain reaction of a series of acquisitions, Datalogics, Crosswise, Moat, and a few other kind of data companies. From there, I left and went to Accenture, and I led Accenture's data management platforms practice within Accenture Interactive for about 3.5 years. And from my start getting into the space in 2011, really just kind of working on more personalized ads. So when I left in 2020, what I saw was that data was being increasingly weaponized against people and used in very harmful ways, far beyond what I had originally kind of found interested in the industry. And so at around that time, these privacy laws were starting to get passed because, if you go into the maybe early 2000s, nobody really cared about this stuff. But all of a sudden, consumers are starting to get more aware, more upset, more concerned. And so that led to demands for laws. And that started in Europe, really reached the public consciousness. It started in Europe with GDPR, made its way here to California, where I live, and has been cascading through the country. And so I felt like when I left Accenture that there was a real need for a piece of software that would encode the rights that were being provided to just everyday people into technology. And so that was one key thing, was just kind of being from inside the industry. The data broker industry is pretty vast. There's lots of different categories. Some of it's for personalized ads. Some of it's for email prospecting. Some of it's for direct mail, database marketing, analytics, like everything. There's lots of different places. And my area was within personalized ads. And I left Oracle, I think, in 2016. And that was at Accenture. And so that was one kind of like vector to it. The other thing that happened also, it was right around 2019 when I started thinking about this, was I was the victim of identity theft. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job of kind of protecting myself and, reasonably tech savvy. And an attacker, I don't really know, but I believe it profiled me and actually created a fake ID, California driver's license, with my home address on it and with my name on it, and actually also a fake ID in my wife's name. as well. And so two individuals walked into a Verizon store with two false identifications. They knew our phone numbers, they knew our home addresses, and they got some free cell phones out of it. And so I kind of was like, whoa, how the heck did this happen? And at the time, it was just like, I had no idea. And I learned more about data brokers and sites like Spy Dialer, and we can kind of map people to phone numbers and phone numbers to home addresses. And I said, wow, I Googled myself, and it was like my cell phone number was literally in the Google search results. Like we typed in my name, and it was like, there was my cell phone number right there. And I kind of started learning more about what was going on, and I started to get it removed. And I just felt like there were some solutions. I didn't feel like they were very good. And kind of coming from a kind of a technology background, I felt like there was this huge opportunity to, provide a piece of software to people and to companies, and really to outdo what I saw as existing solutions on the market that were just not very good. So those are the two things that led me to start Optery and kind of got me here. And so now, Optery was started in 2020, and we consider ourselves a privacy and cybersecurity company. And we're working all day long with customers that care about this stuff, and companies that are protecting their employees, their own customers, government officials. And that's how I got here.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. One thing that I want your thoughts on, and this is something I think is very important to talk to consumers and businesses about, and that is, I think people just don't imagine how much data is out there about them, and they can't imagine how someone will possibly use it against them, right? So I think that's pretty much the shock, but I want your thoughts there.
Definitely. I think it's like the analogy I like to use is like if you if you go out into the country away from the city, you maybe join a trip to visit some family or something like that. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and you look at the stars, and it's just so vast, as compared to maybe when you're in the city. And it's just like endless. That's really what it's like with data brokers. It's even being in the industry for a while, and kind of, we actually just released a open source data broker directory. So if you go to optery.com, you go to resources, you can click data broker directory. I think there's about 650 different data brokers that we have profiles on. The opt-out place you can go to opt out, self-service opt-out guides, etc. And that's great that we have 650 up there that we're profiling and kind of making aware to the public. We've assembled that data set. We'll soon be moving it over and giving people access to it in GitHub, but right now it's there. But that just scratches the surface. There's just still so much more. And our approach right now is pretty US centric. We're actually very close to expanding into other countries. But right now, even though 650 or so is pretty just kind of scratching the surface. I think the last I checked, the California Data Broker Registry had like 550 or so. That's good because a couple of years ago, there was only like 400 or so data brokers that had disclosed themselves. And some of the legal action that state attorney generals are starting to take against data brokers that are not disclosing themselves has been great. I think getting data brokers are behaving a little bit better, so they disclose themselves. But even then, there's actually a lot of companies that aren't disclosing themselves properly. And that's a very US-centric list. So there's just, I think, Jeff Joseph, who's a privacy researcher that we have a lot of respect for. He maintains a list, and I don't remember the exact number, but I think he's tracking like 2,000 of them. So it's just really vast. And there's every type of data set under the sun. It's everything from, your driving behavior agreements that maybe a Toyota or, General Motors might have, or Ford, with data brokers of where you're driving and how fast you're driving, to purchase information and just everything. It's just endless.
Yeah, oh my goodness, terrible. I know I was at a conference and someone who is in the insurance industry said that they actually know how much water is in the wheel well of people's cars. And Lord knows what they're going to do with that type of data. But this is just the granularity of information that they collect on people and like devices and stuff like that. What's happening in the world right now that's concerning you most? Maybe something in the news that you saw, you're like, "Wow, like this is unbelievable."
Yeah, well, so I think maybe a couple things. One, I think one of the things that we're seeing and noticing a lot of is I call it the privacy divide. And there's different states that have privacy laws that are active and live. Like in California, we have one, Texas has one, Oregon has one, but most of the states if you're a citizen of a certain state, you don't have rights to privacy. And so maybe early on, data brokers was getting so few opt-out requests, they were just sort of like honoring them. And now the awareness among the public and companies like Optery and others, our businesses are growing very rapidly. And so the volume and the scale of the opt-out requests that we're starting to send to data brokers is getting large. And some, not all, but some data brokers are starting to say, hey, look, if you're in North Dakota, sorry, like there's no legal requirement for us to stop selling your information. But hey, okay, you're in Colorado and Utah and Virginia, we'll stop selling your information. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, is that there's a growing privacy divide in the United States of haves and have-nots in terms of who has rights to privacy and who don't. And really it's up to the citizenry and like the people in those states to demand their lawmakers to get something passed. The other thing that's happening that's, I think, very concerning is I think it's really unknown to the public how powerful the data broker lobby is. There's tremendous billions and billions of dollars that's earned by data companies, and they are not dumb. They're very smart, and they have a lot of money. And so when they see privacy laws getting passed, or they see companies like ours, they'll do whatever they can to maintain the status quo. And so they put forth tremendous effort and resources to water down privacy laws, to block them, to cast doubt and aspersions to, privacy companies. And so even like something very simple, like there's different privacy laws in the United States, and some of them have specific legal provisions for what's known as an authorized agent. That's what Optery is. We're an authorized agent. There's a lot of talk these days about agentic AI and AI agents that are going out and doing things on your behalf. Before that became the buzzword du jour, that's what we are. We're an authorized agent. We have agent relationship with our customers, and then we go out and get this information removed. So one of the things that the success is that when you see the data brokers high-fiving and cheersing themselves, is if they were able to water down a privacy law such that it doesn't include provisions for an authorized agent. And they'll cast aspersions and say that there's problems with authorized agents and there's like bad incentives and this and that. But the reality is that maybe you and I are privacy and technology and security savvy enough to go out and do these opt-outs, but there's a lot of people that aren't. My parents are aging baby boomers, are not super tech savvy, and to get my mom to go opt herself out of this stuff, forget about it. She needs an authorized agent. She needs someone to help her. Our business customers, we work with court systems to protect judges, counties to protect public officials, and companies to protect executives and employees that have access to financial systems, to have access to code bases. Those people are busy. Those people aren't in our industry. They have kids, they have jobs, they have deadlines. And when a data broker successfully waters down a privacy law such that it doesn't have a provision for a company to assist those that don't have time, or maybe just don't have the savvy, it's a big win for the data broker industry, and it's a big loss for consumers. So those are a couple of things that are just really concerning. And as more privacy laws get passed, every time one gets passed, we actually support it pretty much immediately once it goes into effect. We look at the terms and you can kind of see what's going on, and sometimes you say, oh, the data brokers really got their teeth into this one. So Florida, for example, was a privacy law that was like basically a privacy law in name only. It's like, yes, they have a privacy law, but it kind of doesn't really do anything for you. It's just they were able to get something passed that doesn't really protect people very much. It's far different than maybe like what's passed in Texas. Texas has a good law. California has a good law. Florida does not.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because I think there was some spirited debate I saw several weeks ago about authorized agents. And I think you're right. I mean, people need help. Anyone who can step in this place to help consumers with this managing their data rights is important. I think the last statistic I saw is that the average person has well over 50 kind of logins and passwords to stuff, right? And so that doesn't account them like going to websites and doing other types of business on the internet. So the fact that you're doing this service for people and for companies to help protect them is very important. And I think In addition to privacy, I started talking a lot about safety, right? We saw as a result of the United Healthcare CEO murder that happened, a lot more businesses started being concerned about the safety of people, right? We're doing these high stress, powerful jobs or who basically executives already are very much target of cyber, right? Like ransomware and different things like that. So I think unfortunately, that situation kind of highlighted that the safety issues as a result, one of the laws I'm sure you're familiar with, which is Daniel's Law out of New Jersey, a lot of the data brokers, they kind of filed a suit and they lost in that suit because they were saying, hey, we have a First Amendment right to sell people's data. And they were like, no, you don't, right? And so we're seeing more states try to implement more of Daniel's Law. And so some of the arguments that I heard from some of the data broker lobbying groups were just ridiculous, right? It's like, I need to sell the data of a police officer or a judge because then they can get a car loan. It's like, well, if you're dead, you can't get a car loan, right? And so I think talking more about safety is a very important thing to do.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's safety. This is our niche. Privacy is a big space. VPN gives you browsing privacy, and things like the Tor network gives you privacy. But there's a lot of different things in privacy. And there's a lot of different things in security, endpoint security, network security, security education. Like this is everything. This is our niche. This is where we have our hedgehogging, is this like opt out of data broker. But the other thing, a big reason that this problem is important to people is physical security. It's someone that's stalking or out to commit violence. If your home address is just sort of like readily out there, that can lead to people confronting people physically. So a lot of times people use our product because they don't want their home address out there, or maybe they're a victim of domestic violence, or even we have some of our corporate like Optery for Business customers. They were planning to do a layoff, and they maybe the last time they did that, they had some disgruntled employees that would show up at executives' homes, and so they sometimes will preemptively take steps to get home addresses because they're worried about physical security. But yeah, it's anything that an adversary can be someone in Asia in a pig butchering farm who's profiling people across the globe, or it could be someone not too far from you that maybe you got in a car accident with or something. They're like really pissed off about it. And it's really just data. I mean, today data is so powerful, and those that use it can be used against you. And so
Yeah,
people want to take control.
totally, totally. Well, tell me, what is your key differentiator with Optery?
Yeah. So when we started Optery, we launched the product in 2021, and there's been more companies that have come into the space. At the time, there weren't very many. It was like 2 or 3, and now there's a lot more. So we have a very strong technical team, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves in at Optery. There's a few different things that set us apart from other companies. One is, and actually, even just aside from me, Consumer Reports did a blind study. They blindly tested 6 or 7 of these companies, Optery and others. And Optery was the number one most effective product after like 3 or 4 months that they did a study. The biggest name in the space, kind of the big market leader, performed about half as good in the blind Consumer Reports study as Optery did. So especially when we go to like business customers, a lot of business customers think, oh, this is like a commodity product. They all work the same, right? And we say, no, they won't work the same. Do a blind test. Test this out. Take a few of your employees, test this out for a few months, and then make a decision. So anyway, this is not just me saying this. The other thing about Optery's won the PCMag Editor's Choice Award 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 is the most outstanding product in the market. This is not just me saying Optery is the best. There's a lot of objective analysis out there that has said that. But what sets us apart is we have a really powerful search engine. We have patented technology and proprietary kind of trade secret technology where we do deep crawl scan scrapes of hundreds of data broker sites. And I think this is what really got us that first PCMag award, where we people started to notice us. And on average, we actually find around 100 exposed profiles for our average person that signs up for a free account. So Optery has a freemium model, and we search these hundreds of sites, on average, you find about 100 exposed profiles. And so we're the first to basically send people reports that say, hey, look, like here's 100 screenshots of you on Been Verified and Instant Checkmate and Spy Dialer and Cell Revealer and like Social Catfish, and just the list goes on. So that was really key, is that we actually can show people. And one of our kind of like mottos is it's hard to remove something if you can't find it. And Optery has a really powerful search engine that does a really nice job of finding profiles. That's one. Two is proof. A lot of these companies, they say they remove you, but they don't. And so this is like our industry is not perfect, right? Like we have a lot of work to do. There's like problems with that. We're constantly trying to fix things. But a lot of companies just sort of send a report, like a PDF that says, been verified, removed. It just says removed. And you just trust them that it's been removed, unless you go Google it and you really search them or something. So one of the things that sets Optery apart that our business customers really like is we actually send before and after screenshots. So not only do we take screenshots to find you, and we send you a report with 100 screenshots of where you found, we also send you an after, which is, hey, here's where you were. And now if you search that page, this is what comes up. That's really helpful to kind of justify things internally. If you have a cybersecurity decision maker who has to justify a budget to the CEO or the board, or maybe through the CFO, to say, hey, look, like here's like real evidence that we're reducing our surface area of attack. So that visibility that we give is one of the things that really sets us apart. Two is just monthly scanning and removals. So every month we automatically go out and do monthly scans and removals. And three is just kind of the breadth of coverage. So I think today we cover like 650 or so data brokers, and some out there maybe cover like 200. And so you definitely matters like the breadth of coverage. And it's also really important to actually pay close attention into how it's being covered. So most of the companies in our space covers things like kind of like just natively and by default, and then have something called custom removals or custom requests. And that's where like, hey, I have to submit that request in manually. And some of our competitors really, really juice their numbers by saying, hey, we cover 1,000 data brokers, but only 100 of them are covered actually by like automation. And the other 600 or 900 are covered by like, you have to submit them manually. So just the breadth of the coverage, the visibility. And last one is just like probably our enterprise features and kind of enterprise reporting that displays to people like, hey, we've removed 2,000 emails or 2,000 phone numbers. So those are a few of the things that kind of differentiate Optery in the space.
Wow, that's amazing. So what are you seeing out there? So are there more data brokers coming online every day? Are there more that are trying? I'm sure a lot of them want to do this manual process because they know it's hard for people to do. But what are you seeing just in the data broker industry? Like, what are they doing right now?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting trends that we're seeing right now is the emergence of AI native data brokers. So you have these like different categories of data brokers. People search sites, the one that most people are pretty familiar with now, White Pages, Spokio, Instant Checkmate, Been Verified, really the place that this industry kind of started with. Two is the prospecting databases, and like the kind of ones that have been around for a while. ZoomInfo, RocketReach, Clearbit, Apollo, basically SDRs and BDRs that are sending out cold email campaigns and basically trying to get meetings with a lot of kind of technology buyers. So those have been around for a while, and that's kind of what we've been working on for a while. But just in the last year, there's been a tremendous amount of capital that's gone into AI. And there's a lot of different companies. AI companies doing everything, right? All kinds of things, human robots and like everything you can imagine. One of the things that they're doing is AI native prospecting. So AI SDRs. So I don't need to have hire 10 sales development representatives. I can just use this company to auto generate emails and send them out to prospects, and not only send them, but also respond to them. So historically, you'd have companies that would kind of send out emails, and then if the prospect would respond, a human would write back, hey, can we set up a meeting? So now that's all happening just kind of like with just bots who are sending out the emails, responding to emails, setting up the meetings, following up, just all automatically. And there's a lot of companies that are doing this right now that we would kind of refer to them as like AI native prospecting companies. And actually, they're getting a little bit of a free pass temporarily because most people are focused on, hey, like, get my home address out of Google, or hey, like opt me out of ZoomInfo or RocketReach, and they're not yet familiar with these new names. So there's a bunch of new names like Instantly and like Warmly and AISDR and Artisan and Copilot, and we've profiled around 30 to 50 of them, and they're all getting a lot of venture capital. And so throughout the coming months, most of them are not disclosing themselves in these data broker registries. They're selling access to people, they're selling data, but they're kind of like, when the California data broker registry first came out, it was like 200 data brokers disclosed themselves, and then over time now that's like up to like 500 or so. I think a lot of them kind of like are in denial that they actually have to be accountable to laws. And right now there's also so many data brokers, you can only target so many at a time. So there might be just a trickle of like lawsuits or action that's happening out of California or out of Texas, even though the violations is just like massive. So it's definitely very concerning. And I think like over time they'll increasingly be aware that, okay, we have to comply with these laws, and you'll start to see them covered by companies like ours and kind of like help people. Privacy, and privacy is all about control. It's like, okay, here's my information, I want to be able to control it. And so that's a really interesting trend that we're seeing, and it'll play itself out over the next like year or two. It's not going to be a quick fix.
Yeah, I agree with that. And actually, Vermont was the first state to have a data broker registry. But even at the time when they did that, it was interesting because the average person, even me, I couldn't like point out like, who are these people? Why do they know me? Right. But I think a lot of people are getting more visibility into data brokers because as some of these data brokers are getting breached, they're getting letters from these companies they've never heard of saying, "Hey, your data got breached and we had your data." And like, who are you? Like, why did you have my
Yeah.
data? And so, and I want your thoughts on this. So one of the things that I had always been, I don't know, like shake my fist at the sky around privacy regulation and as it relates to kind of data brokers or this, what I call this like underground data market that people never hardly think about, is that a lot of the way that privacy laws have traditionally been passed, they assume that you are in a business relationship of some sort with some company and that you know who that company is and you willingly exchange your data. All right. And so we know the data broker industry is not like that at all. Right. So they get data from however they want. They scrape it from places. They combine data sets together, they package it up and sell it. And so I think I'm glad to see that there are some states like California who are trying to like plug this hole or try to address this market. But I think because and this is a problem in Europe as well, where because the way that the laws are written, they assume that this is a company that you know. And so having company that you don't know that's collecting data about you, it's hard. It's like, how can you contact a company you don't know, right? I want your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we're all busy, right? People don't have time to read all these hundreds of complicated privacy policies that are getting you to inadvertently accept terms. I mean, I think there's a lot of cars these days have mobile apps where you can kind of unlock your car from your phone, maybe turn on your car, find out where your car is if you forgot where it was in the big parking lot. And when you saw those apps, there's some boxes you have to check, and a lot of people don't maybe like read and say, okay, I just want to install this app. I'm gonna hurry. I gotta go. I'm gonna click the boxes, click OK, and then they're okay. Great. I can use my mobile app. I can see like how low I am on gas before I get in my car. But they don't remember that actually in there it says that you actually are permitting your geolocation data and your car data, and that's going to get sold through a bunch of places. So it's kind of just the reality of the world that we live in. But then what's the solution to that? Well, I think the solution to that is things like, centralized registries that makes it visible as to what companies are collecting data. Companies like Optery, authorized agents that are doing the work to track these. So, at Optery, we have a team of like around 10 people. Their whole job is just researching data brokers, testing data brokers, ones that are going out of business, getting them removed, new ones that are coming online, getting them added. Data brokers are constantly changing things up on us. we're adjusting our technology to handle those differences. And so I think you have to kind of fight tech with tech. And I think that's one of the things that data brokers are trying to do by watering down these privacy laws of like prohibiting consumers to fight tech from tech, and just like knowing like you're not going to be able to, if you as a human just using your two hands and your two eyes, you're not going to be able to beat us. And so tech with tech, whether that's through like things like the Delete Act, the drop system that's being worked on here in California, or registries or authorized agents like us, it kind of starts to even the playing field a little bit, where you're not fighting this big, multi-tentacled, powerful beast.
And I think before we started recording, we were chatting a bit about a particular ransomware attack, which I thought was really interesting, where they had links, you said, to ZoomInfo. Well, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, just a week or two ago, there's a Russian ransomware gang that goes by the name of Black Basta, and they had been operating for at least a few years and were reputed for targeting critical infrastructure, hospitals, insurance companies, and quite successfully. And there was an internal conflict within the Russian ransomware gang. They had some kind of conflicts between the gang, and somebody within the gang decided to leak their private chat logs for about a year. I think it was from like 2023 to I think it was September 2023 to September 24. And so they leaked them, and security researchers are all over it and parsing through it and searching through this data. And one of the things that was really interesting that the security researchers revealed was that there were 380 separate links to ZoomInfo. There's very clear evidence that ransomware gangs are utilizing data brokers. I don't want to single out ZoomInfo. I mean, they are the biggest publicly traded company and everything, but they also had others that were doing this. I think RocketReach was found in there as well, and probably others. But what we do know is just sort of categorically that this is real evidence that ransomware gangs are using data brokers like ZoomInfo and RocketReach to profile their targets, research their targets before they attack. And so these are data brokers that we remove people from. And a lot of times people say, "Oh, like, does it really matter? Like, will ransomware gangs really use data brokers?" And this news that came out a couple of weeks ago is proof that they do, and it does matter. And you want to just sort of leave yourself exposed and just say, "Hey, like, my company is wide open and you can profile us, or are you going to do something about it?" So it's definitely bittersweet. I mean, like, no one wants to see ransomware games, period, but it was kind of good to have a little bit of data to tie together their methodologies.
You're talking about the story about ransomware. Well, they also use this information for phishing, right? Because if they can call you or send you an email and they have some type of credible information that you probably will think, well, I never told anybody that, or the fact that they know that gives you more trust and maybe sharing information with them. And that's just one of the big problems with having so much data out there about you.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I think they were creating kind of fake websites and tricking people to provide their logins to what would be the real website. But definitely, yeah.
Well, Lawrence, if we're the world according to you and we did everything you said, what would be your wish for privacy or cyber safety anywhere in the world, whether that be regulation, human behavior, or technology?
Yeah. I talked about a few of these things throughout the conversation. And so maybe part of this is just a summary. But I would say, some of this is maybe a summary and some of it's not. But I'd say one is a consistent set of privacy laws, even just within our country. I think Europe is nice because they have a consistent set of laws across countries, and that's GDPR. That makes things easier for companies. It makes it easier for people. It makes it easier for privacy companies as well. And I think one would be a consistent set of laws in the United States across states, or even better would be at the federal level. And then two would be, and we talked about this a little bit before, but provisions in every law for authorized agents. I think it's really critical that people that are not tech savvy, or maybe don't have time on their hands, or maybe have jobs that are not, where they're not sitting in front of a computer all day, where they can go do this stuff themselves, that they have the right to a service provider. One of the analogies I like to use is The IRS makes it free for anybody in the United States to file taxes. You can file your taxes as an individual, and you can do that for free. There's a lot of complexity to it. People are really busy. They don't have time to keep up with all the laws. They don't have time to keep up with everything. So they use service providers. They use maybe automated ones like TurboTax or TaxSlayer, or they'll use an accountant to help them, close their personal, financials for the year and submit their taxes. And so what the data broker lobby is doing would be akin to prohibiting people from using, tax assistance to file taxes. And so I think it's really key to give people access to companies like ours and services like ours. Yeah. So I think those would be the two things. And the last one would just be enforcement. Like there's very, very little enforcement for what's going on. Just this week, we discovered a data broker that we've been sending them opt-out requests for tens of thousands of our customers. And they have been removing the information from the kind of like publicly accessible like places, but still in the background selling the data via API to their like API customers. And so we're starting to document that, and we need to send that information over to the relevant government officials and enforcement bodies. But the enforcement is just so weak. So I think those would be the three things I would wish.
Yeah, that's a good list. I support you in that, definitely. Well, definitely keep up all the great work that you're doing. This is tremendous. We absolutely need help. So anything that can help a consumer or business be able to protect themselves, I think is the way to go. So thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. We have some really interesting people on here, so it's an honor to be here and speaking with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'm sure we'll be able to talk soon. Thank you.